Two men walk into the same bank in 2009. Same age, same salary. Both 28 years old, both make $55,000 a year. One of them opens an investment account that afternoon. The other one says he'll do it next month. Next month becomes next year. Next year becomes when things calm down. Things never calm down. Fast forward to today. They're both 44. One of them has $340,000 in assets. The other has $31,000. Same starting line, completely different finish. Here's the uncomfortable part. The second guy didn't do anything wrong. He didn't gamble, he didn't lose his job, he just waited. And that gap you just heard, that's not a story about discipline or laziness. That's a story about how wealth actually works after 35, and why most people don't understand it until it's already too late. We need to talk about something that almost nobody explains clearly. There's a specific window in your financial life, roughly between your mid-30s and your mid-40s, where the decisions you make stop being about income and start being about architecture, about how your money is structured, about whether your assets are working while you sleep or just sitting there waiting to be spent. Most personal finance content focuses on the wrong decade. It tells 22-year-olds to skip lattes and 55-year-olds to panic. But the real inflection point, the moment where financial trajectories either lock in or fall apart, is happening right now for a huge segment of the population. And here's why this matters in 2025 specifically. We just came through a period of historically high interest rates, a battered housing market, a post-pandemic reshuffling of jobs and incomes, and a stock market that had people confused about whether to celebrate or evacuate. The people who understood the mechanics, they built quietly. The people who were waiting for clarity, they're still waiting. So let's actually break down what's happening. Meet Alex. Alex is 36. He earns decent money, let's say $75,000 a year. He's not broke, he's not rich. He's what economists would call middle accumulation phase, which is a fancy way of saying he should be building, but he might not be. Alex has a 401k through work. He contributes just enough to get the employer match, about 4%. He has a savings account with around $8,000 in it. He owns no stocks outside of his retirement account. He has no investment property. His net worth, after subtracting his car loan and credit card balance, is roughly $47,000. That number sounds okay. It isn't. Here's the brutal math. If Alex wants to retire at 65 with any reasonable quality of life, most financial planners will tell you he needs somewhere between $1.2 and $1.8 million in today's dollars. Let's call it $1.5 million. He has $47,000. He has 29 years. If he does absolutely nothing differently, same contribution rate, same savings behavior, he'll arrive at 65 with roughly $280,000. That's not a retirement. That's about 4 years of average living expenses and then a very uncomfortable conversation with his kids. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part nobody tells you clearly. The math isn't linear, it's exponential. And exponential curves are psychologically brutal because they look flat for a long time before they explode upward. If Alex increases his monthly investment from roughly $250 to $900, which is aggressive but achievable on his salary, and if he earns a relatively modest 7% annual return, he arrives at 65 with $1.4 million. Same income, same job, same city, completely different outcome. The variable wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it was rate and time, and the window for time is quietly closing. Stay with this, because the next part is where most people get it completely backwards. Here's the thing that the wealth gap conversation almost never addresses. It's not just about saving more, it's about what your money is doing when you're not looking at it. There's a concept called velocity of money, not in the macroeconomic textbook sense, but in a personal finance sense. It's the idea that a dollar can either sit still or it can be working, and after 35, the difference between those two states becomes dramatic. Take two people. Both have $50,000. Person A puts it in a high-yield savings account. Right now, that's earning maybe 4.5%. Fine, safe. That $50,000 becomes roughly $78,000 in 10 years. Person B puts it in a diversified index fund. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned about 10% annually over long periods. And yes, with volatility, with scary years, with moments where it drops 30% and your stomach drops with it. But over 10 years, that $50,000 becomes roughly $130,000. Same $50,000, $52,000 difference in outcome, just from where the money lives. Now here's the absurdity. Most people over 35, people who are educated, who read the news, who know what inflation is, are holding far too much cash, not because they're uninformed, because they're scared, because they lived through 2008 or 2020 or both, and the memory of watching accounts drop 40% in 6 months doesn't leave you easily. And that fear, that completely rational human fear, is quietly costing them tens of thousands of dollars a decade. The financial system doesn't penalize ignorance nearly as harshly as it penalizes inaction dressed up as caution. That's the hidden mechanism. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a rigged game. Well, not entirely. It's just compound interest doing what it always does, rewarding people who stay in and quietly punishing people who stay out. Now let's address the noise, because every few years something comes along that promises to shortcut this whole process. In the early 2000s, it was real estate. Buy anything, flip it, get rich. In 2017, it was crypto, revolutionary technology, infinite upside, don't miss the train. In 2021, it was meme stocks and SPACs, and the idea that retail investors had finally cracked the code. And here's the thing, some people did make real money. That's what makes the story compelling. That's what makes the next cycle possible. But zoom out and look at what actually built generational wealth over the last 50 years. It wasn't timing the market. It wasn't finding the magic asset class. It was boring, consistent, slightly unsexy participation in wealth-building instruments. Index funds, real estate held over decades, business ownership, tax-advantaged accounts over very long periods of time. The wealth gap after 35 isn't primarily caused by people making bad bets. It's caused by people waiting for the perfect bet while the real game continues without them. Alex, our guy from earlier, his biggest financial mistake wasn't a bad investment, it was a non-investment. The years he spent on the sideline didn't just cost him returns, they cost him compounding time, and that's the one thing you genuinely cannot buy back. Because here's where the bigger picture gets really uncomfortable. The wealth gap after 35 is not just a personal finance problem, it's a structural one. Here's a number worth sitting with. In the United States, the top 10% of households own approximately 87% of all stocks. In the UK, that concentration is similar. Across most developed economies, the pattern holds. What that means practically is this. When markets go up, and over long periods they do, the people who benefit are overwhelmingly people who were already participating, which means existing wealth begets future wealth. The gap doesn't just persist, it compounds. And the people who were locked out aren't locked out by law, they're locked out by inertia, by financial anxiety, by a system that nobody really explained to them, and the very reasonable belief that investing is something rich people do, when the truth is closer to the opposite. Investing is how people become less poor over time, if they start early enough and stay consistent enough. The problem is that early enough for the compounding math to really work is somewhere in your 20s. The problem is most people in their 20s are dealing with student debt, entry-level jobs, and cities that cost twice what they did a generation ago. So they arrive at 35 behind, and then they spend the next decade figuring out how far behind they actually are. That's not a failure of individual character. That's a failure of financial education at scale. And the cost of that failure is measured in retirement accounts that run dry in your early 70s, in people working jobs they're too tired for because they have no choice, in a quiet financial anxiety that follows an entire generation into old age. Back to Alex. He's not a cautionary tale. He's still 36. The math still works in his favor if he moves. Not perfectly, not without sacrifice, but it works. The uncomfortable truth about the wealth gap after 35 is that it's not sealed, but it is narrowing. Every year of delay isn't just a year without returns, it's a year where the mountain you need to climb gets slightly steeper and slightly higher at the same time. The people quietly widening the gap aren't geniuses. They're not especially lucky. Most of them just started earlier, stayed longer, and didn't confuse watching the market with participating in it. There's an old line, often misattributed to Einstein, that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Whether Einstein said it or not is beside the point. The math is real, and the math does not care about your intentions, your timing, your anxiety, or your plan to start next month. What it cares about is whether you're in or out. And the strange, slightly infuriating, deeply human truth is that most people already know this. They know the gap is real. They know time matters. They know the account they haven't opened yet is quietly costing them. They're just waiting for the right moment. And that wait, that perfectly reasonable, emotionally understandable, mathematically catastrophic wait, is exactly how the wealth gap after 35 keeps getting wider. The question isn't whether you know this. You do now. The question is what you're going to do with the next 30 days, because that is genuinely the only variable left that you control. Here's what I want to know, and drop this in the comments because I actually read them. At what age did you first seriously start thinking about building wealth? Not just saving, actually building. And looking back, what's the one thing you wish someone had explained to you 10 years earlier? If this video made you think differently about where you are right now, share it with one person who's in their mid-30s and still figuring this out. It won't cost you anything. For them, it might be worth more than they